Today's video, I thought we would have a look at the NECA Duke Nukem Forever. This is Duke Nukem. Duke Nukem here is a bit of an older figure, and the only reason why I was able to pick him up, I just happened to go to my comic book store looking to get other stuff, and I noticed that this guy was still in the pegs. I don't know if they had just brought him in, maybe somebody had sold him, but I didn't see him before, and I thought, you know what, why not? I'm here for something else. That's usually the way it goes when you go to the comic book store, something else catches your eye. Before we have a look at his two accessories, because he only has two, let's get some measurements going for Duke Nukem. The figure stands at almost 7 inches in height. When it comes to his accessories, I know at the beginning of this review it looked like he came with a display stand. I just provided that. He doesn't come with a stand, but as you can see, Mr. Nukem here stands perfectly fine. First, looking at the weapon of choice, comes with his pistol, which has some really nice glittered gold, metallic gold on the top. Unfortunately, it carries a little bit down into the bottom carriage of the gun, where you can see a little bit of that gold has now been inadvertently airbrushed into the bottom area. The handle has almost like a pearl sort of coloring to it, and there's even that little branding logo on there as well, which looks quite good. Yeah, not a bad looking pistol. He holds it theoretically in both hands. I say theoretically because one hand is really more suited for the cigar. The other hand here, this one here, because he has the extended finger out, if you put the pistol into this hand, ultimately what you get is you get the pointer finger right on the trigger, so this works out better. The other accessory he comes with is one of which, being in the category of I probably will lose this after this review, is his stogie, his cigar. The cigar is lit, as you can see on the end there, and some nice little burn areas on the tip of it, and you've also got the paper on the bottom there. It's slightly on a more softer plastic, and it can fit into his hand. So if we just have a look at his hand here, it fits in between his thumb, and it fits in between his two fingers. So you can have him holding it like that. When I did get this guy out of packaging, I thought his arm actually could only bend at the elbow, and I thought, oh, fiddlesticks. I was hoping that you could have actually had the cigar closer to his mouth. And what this is pretty cool. They hinged the bicep, something that they haven't done really with any other figure that I can think of. If they have, I just simply have forgotten it. But they've hinged his bicep. So not only does he have the hinge in the elbow, but he also has a secondary hinge, allowing the cigar to get right up to his face, right up there. It's still not right up to his face. I guess you can get it as close to about there, before stuff starts telling you maybe you don't want to go any further. So at least, at the very least, you can get pretty close with that up to his face. One thing I was hoping, though, is that this particular figure have the means to hold the cigar in his mouth. You know, for me, I always picture Duke Nukem with, you know, the big stogie sticking out of his mouth. I guess I could probably put a little hole there to fit the cigar in, but I really don't want to do. I really don't want to damage this figure just simply to get the cigar actually lodged into his mouth. Maybe a secondary mouth could have gone a long way. Something that actually had more of a little grimaced face to him, because his face is otherwise pretty neutral, I have to admit. So a secondary head could have gone a long way. I don't feel like NECA really would entertain the idea of doing an ultimate version of this guy because, well, Duke Nukem is not really a character that many think of nowadays, and Duke Nukem Forever I don't think did all that well. It was kind of, I think they had hinted that they're going to release the game for a while. Eventually it came out, and nobody really cared. So, probably not going to get another Duke Nukem figure. All the more reason why I really wanted to get this guy also. So there's his cigar, and there's his pistol. I'm just going to take these out of his hands, just for the sake that we can look at the figure. Okay, so the figure itself is pretty good. It has few problems, not many though, but all around it's a decent enough looking figure. The head sculpt's not bad, but it feels very boxy. The head on Duke Nukem in the game, well, he's a little bit longer of a head, and he has a more rounded off kind of box cut, military cut here. Here you've got a very defined box shaped head, which is okay because it's Duke Nukem. The paint, as I could probably best describe it, is not the most realistic, but it makes sense for a video game themed character. It's going to be a little bit more very bright colors, and equally so, like the shading doesn't seem the most natural, but again, you can kind of get away with it because it is a video game themed character. Here's what the figure looks like on the back. Some really nice vibrant color. I know I always say vibrant, but when a figure has really stand out colors, it's generally the word I usually go to. The very vibrant, there we go, red, and he's got some black panel lining here on the sides of his shirt as well as the top collar, which is where you start seeing a little bit of the mess starting to happen. The red carries itself from, unfortunately, the areas of this chest, the top area, right to the top neck area, where now you've got this band of black, unfortunately, now has to share its space with a little bit of the red that inadvertently carried itself into that. The figure's pants look quite good. Now also favoring splits. And I think this was around the time that NECA started to incorporate splits on their legs. It granted a little bit more obvious because you see these big noticeable pegs going through the legs. But at the very least, he at least does have hingeable legs, which works for me. The pockets on the front very nicely painted, as well as you've got the logo there on his belt buckle. One thing also to note as well, that they really did think this out when it came to his posability. So for example, he does have the ab crunch, and normally things like these little ammo straps on his on the sides of his torso would have been attached. But what they did was they smartly left the straps removed so that they just dangle rather than being attached. So you can still get the ab crunch happening, and it doesn't look like, other than if you obviously turn it to the side, you can probably notice it's not attached, but from the front, you can still get the ab crunch happening, and it doesn't look like, well, obviously it won't rip itself away because it would have been glued in place. Very nicely done here. He has muscle builder's arms, weightlifter's arms, I suppose. So unfortunately, even though he has the additional articulation in the biceps, boom, boom, unfortunately, he doesn't have the option to move his arms any further down than this. This is about all you can really get. But couple that with the fact that you can at least bend the elbows in, it does mean that at least it doesn't look like he's just walking around with straight arms. Poseability on this guy. His head rotates all the way around, as well as a hinge up and down. The shoulders hinge outward to about there. That's about all you're really going to get. They also rotate all the way around. And as we had already discussed, he's got this really nice hinge in the bicep. Hinging it out too much, though, looks like he's blown out a bicep. Somebody's broken his arm. But so you'll probably have to get it in. You probably have to keep it to about there. Hinge on the elbow. Rotation on the hands. He has the upper torso crunch. Waist swivel. Waist swivel. And then we had a look at the legs already. The legs hinge outward, slightly forward and back. He's got a mid-thigh swivel cut. Double hinge on the knee, 1 and 2. 1, 2. And then he's also got a ball joint in the foot. Slight ankle pivot too, so if you want ankle rocking action, you can accommodate that quite nicely here with Mr. Nukem. But the only other thing I would say I would have fixed on this particular figure is a little bit of shading or something happening in the glasses. Unfortunately, when you give a figure like this just black shades with absolutely no defining light or anything reflecting off of it, it does make for otherwise pretty fake looking glasses. They probably could have put a little bit of shading, a little bit of maybe blue highlights, a little bit of white maybe reflecting off there. It's something I could easily go in and do myself, but it would be nice that they had incorporated that, included that as well, because just looking at a pair of black shades with nothing on it, granted you can reflect the light as I'm doing it right now, But if they had painted that in, I think it could have also benefited this figure as well. The NECA Duke Nukem Forever is a really nice looking figure, and I'm glad I was able to find this guy at my local comic book store. Sure enough, I was going in for something else. I happened to comb kind of with my eyes side to side on the pegs to see if there was anything else, and this little guy was down below with no home at all. No one wanted to pick him up, but I did pick him up, and I got him actually for a pretty decent price too. I'm glad I did. He's a nice looking figure, and I like that he has incorporated new aspects of articulation. This guy could have also had pre-posed lower legs and pre-posed arms, but luckily he was kind of just on the cusp where NECA was starting to incorporate more articulation, so this guy benefited as a result. The head sculpt's good. Could have been a little bit better. Could have also had the means to hold the cigar into his mouth, but I do like the fact that even though I can't do that right now with this particular figure, shy of me drilling a hole into his face, and I don't really want to do that, at least NECA went ahead as far as to make a hingeable bicep on this guy. So even though I can't really get him to be displayed with a stogie in his mouth, at the very least, I can at least bend his arm to the point where the cigar is up close enough to his face. If he couldn't have done that, then I would have felt like the figure was more of a bigger disappointment. This guy really is not bad at all. Paint's moderately good. It could have been a little bit better. Face sculpt's pretty good. Could have been a little bit better. But I'm pretty happy that I was able to get this guy. It goes to show, though, if you go to your comic book store from time to time, you never know the little gems that you might find sitting on the shelves. Today we were having a look at one of those gems. This was the NECA Duke Nukem Forever Duke Nukem. If you guys wanted to check out some more NECA reviews on this channel, check out my playlist that's called NECA Reviews. If you also want to hit that little subscribe button down below, more videos will be coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.